When we talk about success in relationships, especially for women who already carry themselves with strength and purpose, the first pitfall they avoid is losing themselves for someone else. And that sounds simple at first, almost cliché, but when you peel back the layers, it's actually one of the most common and damaging habits people fall into without realizing it. Because at its core, losing yourself isn't about waking up one day and suddenly not knowing who you are. It happens in small, almost invisible ways, giving up a dream here, silencing your voice there, slowly trading your values for the comfort of someone else's approval. A successful woman recognizes the danger of that erosion. She knows that love should never cost her identity. She doesn't abandon her goals just to fit into someone else's timeline. She doesn't reshape her beliefs because she's afraid of rocking the boat. And most importantly, she doesn't dilute her personality to make herself easier to love. Because here's the truth, if love only works when you're smaller, quieter, or less than you are, then it's not love. It's control disguised as acceptance. Psychologically, this comes down to something called self-concept. Every one of us has a mental picture of who we are, our values, our talents, our dreams, our quirks, even our non-negotiables. And when we sacrifice pieces of that picture to hold on to someone, what we're really doing is teaching our own mind that we're not worthy of being loved as we are. That creates a cycle of dependence. You start measuring your worth not by your own standard, but by someone else's reaction. You become less anchored in yourself and more tied to the shifting tides of their mood, their validation, their approval. And here's where the psychological trap deepens. Because the more you lose yourself, the harder it becomes to leave, even if the relationship is unhealthy. You've invested so much of your identity into this other person that walking away feels like losing not just them, but the version of yourself you abandoned to be with them. That's why some people stay in relationships they know are wrong. It's not weakness, it's identity loss. They're not just leaving a person, they're leaving the version of themselves they built around that person. Now, successful women who are deeply rooted in who they are, they see this trap for what it is. They avoid it by holding onto their individuality like it's oxygen. They date from a place of fullness, not lack, which means when they love, it's additive, it enhances both lives, it doesn't erase one. They're not afraid to say, this is what I believe, this is what I want, this is who I am. And if that scares someone away, they're fine with it. Because they understand something profound. Rejection of the authentic self is a gift. It clears the space for the right connection to arrive. Think about it philosophically. Every human relationship is a meeting of two worlds. You are a universe, your experiences, your stories, your potential, and the other person is a universe too. A healthy relationship is not one world swallowing the other, but two worlds orbiting in balance, creating something larger, richer, more complex. But when you lose yourself, you collapse your entire universe into theirs, and suddenly you're no longer a partner, you're an accessory. And no successful woman wants to be an accessory in her own life. This doesn't mean they're rigid or unwilling to compromise. Flexibility is part of any relationship, but there's a difference between compromise and self-erasure. Compromise is about finding common ground without abandoning who you are. Self-erasure is about abandoning yourself entirely to maintain connection. The first builds intimacy. The second builds resentment. One of the most subtle ways women lose themselves in dating is by shrinking their ambitions. Maybe she dreams of building a career, starting a business, traveling the world. But then she meets someone whose vision of partnership demands her to step back, to tone it down, to prioritize his comfort over her calling. And little by little, she convinces herself it's love. But love that asks you to bury your fire is really fear in disguise. Fear of being too much, fear of being left, fear of standing alone. A successful woman doesn't operate from fear. She operates from abundance. She knows that the right partner won't just allow her to chase her dreams. They'll celebrate it, they'll fuel it. And if someone feels threatened by her light, she doesn't dim it. She simply recognizes they were never equipped to walk beside her. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. That's strength. There's also a deeper emotional layer here. When you lose yourself in dating, you're not just betraying your identity, you're betraying the younger version of you who dreamed bigger. Think about that. Every child has a vision of themselves, uninhibited, fearless, unapologetic. When you silence your voice for a relationship, you're silencing her too. You're telling that younger you that her dreams don't matter as much as someone else's comfort. But a successful woman refuses to betray that inner voice. She honors it, she protects it, she carries it into adulthood with integrity. And let me be clear, holding on to yourself isn't always easy. It takes courage to walk away when you feel the pull to stay. It takes strength to speak up when silence seems safer. It takes self-respect to say, I matter, too. But the reward is immeasurable. Because when you stand firm in who you are, you don't just attract love, you attract the kind of love that aligns with your essence. In the end, this key point is about understanding that love is not supposed to cost you your identity. The right relationship doesn't require you to abandon yourself, it requires you to bring yourself fully to the table. Anything less is just an illusion of connection, not the real thing. So, if you take nothing else from this point, remember this: never lose yourself for someone else. The greatest act of love you can give to another person is showing up as your whole, authentic self. And the greatest act of love you can give to yourself is refusing to settle for anything less. Because when you protect who you are, you protect the very thing that makes you worthy of the love you're searching for. One of the most defining habits that separate successful women from those who constantly find themselves in draining, unbalanced relationships is this: they don't settle for red flags. And I'm not talking about the obvious ones we all can see in hindsight: cheating, lying, blatant disrespect. I'm talking about the subtle, early signs that so many people choose to overlook because they're caught up in hope, attraction, or the fear of being alone. The red flags that whisper instead of shout, the ones that test your boundaries in small doses before they ever show themselves in full. Here's the thing: people rarely reveal who they are all at once. Character leaks out over time through small actions, words, and choices. A successful woman pays attention to those leaks. She doesn't excuse them away, she doesn't romanticize them into something harmless, and she doesn't convince herself that she'll be the exception who changes someone. She believes what she sees the first time, because she knows that ignoring early warning signs is the fastest way to end up trapped in something toxic. Why do so many people ignore red flags? Psychology has a word for it: cognitive dissonance. It's the mental discomfort we feel when our hopes and reality don't align. Maybe you meet someone who seems perfect on paper, charming, ambitious, attractive, and then you notice they cancel plans last minute, or they dismiss your feelings, or they speak badly about others behind their back. Deep down, you know it's a problem. But acknowledging it means facing the possibility that this person isn't who you thought they were. And because we don't want to lose the fantasy, we twist the facts. We tell ourselves they're just busy, or stressed, or misunderstood. That's how red flags get normalized. A successful woman doesn't fall for that trap. She recognizes that hope is not a strategy. If the behavior she's seeing in the beginning makes her uneasy, it's a preview of what's to come, not an exception. She doesn't confuse potential with reality. And that's key. Potential can blind you. Someone might have the potential to be kind, consistent, supportive. But if they're not showing those qualities now, then right now they're not that person. Love cannot be built on a maybe. Think of it like this: when you buy a house, you don't ignore cracks in the foundation just because the paint is nice. You don't say, well, I love the color of the living room, so maybe the flooding in the basement won't matter. No, you know that if the foundation is cracked, the whole structure is at risk, no matter how pretty the surface looks. Relationships work the same way. Red flags are cracks in the foundation. Ignore them, and no amount of surface level charm can hold up the weight of long-term commitment. Now, some people say, but everyone has flaws. Doesn't refusing to settle make you too picky? That's where wisdom comes in.